Okay, let's unpack this. If you're working anywhere near innovation or regional development in Europe, you've definitely heard these terms flying around. Horizon 2020, Cohesion Policy, Smart Specialization Strategies, S3.
Absolutely huge EU initiatives.
Exactly. And they often get mentioned together. Horizon 2020, that's all about funding top-tier, cutting-edge research.
The excellence-driven part.
Right. And then cohesion policy is aimed more at, well, reducing those economic gaps between regions, helping everyone catch up.
Leveling the playing field, essentially.
And S3. Those are the strategies regions build themselves, their blueprints for innovation.
Identifying their strengths.
But here's the million-euro question, maybe literally. Are these big, powerful programs actually working together effectively? Are they creating synergy? Or are they sometimes pulling in different directions, maybe even clashing a bit on the ground?
That's the core issue, isn't it? Do they add up to more than the sum of their parts?
So today, we're doing a deep dive into a really interesting recent analysis from the European Commission's Joint Research Center.
The JRC, yeah. They do some great work.
They look specifically at how EU regions managed to combine Horizon 2020 funding with cohesion policy money between 2014 and 2020.
That crucial programming period.
Our mission here is to really get under the hood of what synergy actually means in this EU funding world. How did the researchers even measure it across, hundreds of regions?
A lot of regions.
And most importantly, what came out of it? What are the surprising, maybe actionable insights for boosting innovation, growth, and, social fairness? It's about seeing how these huge programs actually connect or don't connect for you in the regions.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is this shift in perspective. It's not just about here's a pot of money anymore.
Right.
It's about ensuring those different pots of money work together to create a bigger impact, a combined effect.
So when we talk synergy here, what's the simple definition?
Think of it simply as two or more different funding programs working more effectively together than they could if they were just operating in isolation.
Like a force multiplier.
Exactly, a force multiplier. You've got cohesion policy. Its main job is helping economically less advantaged regions catch up, fostering more balanced development across the EU.
Okay.
And then Horizon 2020 is really designed to back the best of the best, the top-tier research, pushing scientific frontiers.
Very different goals on the surface.
Seemingly, yes. But the potential win, if you integrate them successfully, is huge. You could seriously boost innovation, drive economic growth, and improve social equity all at the same time, amplifying the effect for communities.
That idea of a force multiplier really clicks. But, measuring synergy, that sounds fuzzy.
Yeah.
How do you measure something like that across so many different places and projects? It sounds incredibly complex.
Oh, it was a massive task, no doubt about it. They approached it by digging into detailed project data from, get this, 806 European regions.
Wow, 806.
Yeah, over that whole 2014 to 2020 period. And to figure out how closely the funding streams were aligned, they used a statistical method called the cosine similarity index.
Cosine similarity. Okay, break that down a bit.
Sure. In simple terms, it's a way to measure how similar the focus of two sets of funding was. Were they addressing similar issues or themes? Imagine them as directions or vectors. The closer the angle between them, the more similar they are.
So it's looking at the thematic overlap?
Exactly. They specifically looked at funding aimed at 7 key societal challenges. Big ones: climate action, health, energy,
Right.
security, transport, bioeconomy, and inclusive societies.
So they took all these projects, tagged them with these themes, and then used this cosine similarity thing to see basically how much Horizon 2020 and cohesion funding were singing from the same hymn sheet, theme-wise.
That's a good way to put it, quantifying the alignment.
Pretty clever. So they had this tool, they had the data.
Mm-hmm.
What did they actually find? Where did the synergy seem to be working well, and where was it, falling short?
Well, one of the really clear findings, maybe not surprising, but important to confirm, was that innovation really does thrive best in connected ecosystems, meaning regions that already had strong universities, solid research institutions, and, crucially, a good number of specialized, knowledge-intensive service providers. Those regions showed much better alignment. They were better at combining the two funding streams effectively.
That's really interesting. It shifts the focus, doesn't it? It's not just about pouring money in, but about the network that receives it.
Precisely.
It really highlights that the funding needs fertile ground. You need those universities, the research centers, the innovative businesses already talking to each other, collaborating. They're the essential pieces of a network that can actually use that combined funding well.
Couldn't agree more. It's about absorption capacity, in part. And another big finding pointed towards urban areas.
Ah, the urban-rural divide again.
To an extent, yes. Cities consistently showed stronger alignment, better synergy between Horizon 2020 and cohesion funds compared to more rural regions.
Why is that, do they think?
Well, it likely comes down to the inherent advantages of cities, right? You've got denser networks of institutions, businesses, people bumping into each other.
More opportunities for collaboration, yeah.
Exactly. Plus, generally better infrastructure. It all just makes combining complex funding streams a bit easier.
That's a critical point, though, because it immediately makes you ask, well, what are those specific structural advantages cities have? And more importantly, how can we help rural areas maybe build some of that capacity or find different ways to achieve synergy? We can't just say, oh, well, cities are better at it.
Absolutely. It flags a real policy challenge. The analysis also sent a pretty strong message. Sometimes less is more.
Less is more. How so?
They found that regions trying to tackle too many different priorities at once, maybe through their smart specialization strategy, they often ended up diluting their impact.
Spreading themselves too thin.
Exactly. The regions that had fewer, really clearly defined priorities, they made much more effective use of the combined resources. Focusing the effort prevented the funding from being scattered too widely, and that led to better outcomes.
That makes intuitive sense, like the jack of all trades, master of none idea. But isn't there always pressure on regions when applying for funding to kind of tick all the boxes?
Yeah.
To show they care about everything?
That's a very real pressure, yes. It's a tough balancing act for regional authorities. And speaking of challenges, the analysis specifically highlighted difficulties in less developed regions.
Okay, what kinds of difficulties?
Well, regions that are classified as less developed or maybe emerging innovators, they often struggled more to effectively combine Horizon 2020 and cohesion funds.
And the reasons.
Often it came down to, well, a few key things. Weaker infrastructure, fewer institutions with the capacity to manage really complex multi-stream projects, and sometimes quite fragmented local business environments. It's harder to build those collaborative networks we talked about earlier.
So the very regions that cohesion policy is designed to help might have the hardest time leveraging both types of funding together.
That can be the unfortunate paradox, yes. And one final finding really ties this together: the need to balance targeted versus broad funding.
Explain that.
Horizon 2020, by its very nature, is super competitive. It tends to concentrate funding quite narrowly on, pockets of excellence, specific high-performing themes or consortia.
Right. It seeks out the best.
Whereas cohesion funding often needs to distribute resources more widely across a region to achieve its broader development goals, reduce disparities within the region itself.
So one focuses narrowly, the other spreads more broadly.
Exactly. And finding the right balance, making sure these two different approaches complement each other rather than working at cross purposes, that's absolutely crucial if you want to maximize the impact of the total EU investment.
Okay, so we've got these findings. The importance of ecosystems, the urban advantage, focusing priorities, challenges for less developed regions, and balancing funding approaches. It paints a complex picture. What does this all mean for the policymakers, the people actually designing these programs or managing them in Brussels or in regional capitals? How do they turn this knowledge into action?
Well, the research doesn't just point out problems. It offers some pretty clear, actionable recommendations.
Good. Let's hear them.
First off, policymakers really need to double down on strengthening those innovation ecosystems.
Okay, how?
It means targeted investment in universities, yes, but also in those knowledge-intensive service industries, and actively promoting collaboration, really incentivizing universities, research centers, and businesses to work together much more closely. That fosters the ground for better funding alignment.
So it's like nurturing the soil before you plant the seeds. Makes sense. What else?
Second, define clear, focused priorities. The recommendation is really to encourage regions to limit their smart specialization strategies, their S3s, to fewer, very clearly articulated goals.
Resisting the urge to do everything.
Precisely. Strategic clarity helps align resources much more effectively and boosts the overall impact. Don't try to be world-class in 10 things if you can be truly excellent in 3.
Okay, focus. Got it.
Third, there's a really strong call for tailored support, specifically for less developed or more peripheral areas.
Going beyond just general cohesion funding.
Yes. developing targeted programs designed to help rural or emerging regions build capacity. This means specific investments in infrastructure, yes, but also institutional training, helping local bodies manage complex funds, and direct support for local businesses to help them plug into these innovation networks.
That sounds vital if we want to avoid deepening the divides. It requires a more hands-on, tailored approach.
It absolutely does. It's about building capability, not just transferring funds. And finally, number 4, improve policy coordination.
The classic coordination challenge.
Always. But it's critical here. This means actively working to streamline regulations and, importantly, enhance communication between the different funding programs, Horizon Europe Now, the cohesion funds, others at all levels, regional, national, and European.
Cutting through the red tape and getting people talking.
Essentially, yes. Reducing the administrative complexity makes it easier for regions to actually use the funds synergistically and maximizes their effectiveness. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, these recommendations, they aren't just minor tweaks. They're really about fundamentally rethinking how investments are made to ensure we get the absolute best return for communities right across Europe. It's about smarter spending, not just more spending.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. It really hammers home that understanding these synergies or lack thereof, it's just so critical, not just for policymakers in Brussels, but for researchers, regional leaders, anyone involved in shaping innovation or development strategies on the ground.
Definitely.
And these insights, they aren't just theoretical, are they? They offer really practical, evidence-based guidance. How to make smarter investment decisions, how to really strengthen regional innovation ecosystems, and ultimately boost the competitiveness of EU regions globally.
And by getting this integration right, by making excellence-driven funding and cohesion policy work hand-in-hand more effectively, Europe puts itself in a much stronger position to tackle the really big challenges we all face.
Like climate change.
Exactly. Climate change, health crises, the energy transition, while also driving sustainable regional development. It's about leveraging every euro for that maximum integrated impact.
So in the end, putting these findings into practice isn't just about ticking boxes or optimizing budgets. It's about transforming that theoretical idea of synergy into real, concrete growth and prosperity.
Tangible benefits for communities.
Delivering meaningful improvements across the EU, enhancing that competitive edge globally. And maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Even if you're not directly involved with EU funding, think about how these principles might apply in your own context. How could different initiatives, different investments in your community or your field work better together? How could you create something genuinely greater than the sum of its parts? It's definitely something worth considering.